Okay, I want to tell you guys a story about a band called Nirvana. You probably know the story already, but whatever. They were a good band, man, a really good band. They had this awesome third album, lost them a lot of fans, though. Had this great track on it called Tourette's that went, but doesn't really work over these chords. Anyway, I've totally lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, Kurt Cobain's dead and I'm reliably informed that Courtney did it. She did it, Courtney did it. Oh, Courtney killed Cobain. She did it, Courtney did it, Courtney did it. Courtney killed Cobain. I don't know why we blame it on her. It seems easy to say Courtney Love is capable of murder, but I haven't much of anything to back that up. I might be going out on a limb here, but I think society doesn't seem to like women at the best of times, but we really get mad when they fuck our rock stars, you know? Kurt Cobain belongs to us, we cried, so naturally when he died, everybody said Courtney did it, she did it, Courtney did it, oh, Courtney killed Cobain. She did it, Courtney did it, Courtney did it, Courtney killed Cobain. She raised that kid on her own. Yeah, she's got problems. Don't we all have problems that would be exacerbated by living life in the public eye? Need I remind you, this poor human being lost her husband when she was barely 29, and we repay her how? By hassling her on Twitter fucking 700 times a day. Her phone goes ping, 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 ping. 99% of the time it's saying the same thing. It's saying, good evening, Courtney Love. It is I, MK Ultra Truther 99, and you will no doubt be nervous to learn I've been carrying out an independent investigation into the mysterious circumstances surrounding your husband's suicide. Kurt Cobain's suicide note is 4 paragraphs of a man preparing to leave you and retire from the music industry, followed by 4 lines at the end in different pen and different handwriting, in which he talks about suicide. Pretty weird, Courtney. Pretty weird, not incriminating on its own. However, following your husband's death, in your possession was found a piece of paper in which you've been practicing his handwriting. What have you been practicing? You've been practicing the last fucking 4 lines of his suicide note. How do you explain that? I'll tell you how I explain that. You did it, just admit it. You killed Kurt Cobain. You did it, just admit it, just admit it. You killed Kurt Cobain, Kurt Cobain, Kurt Cobain. Killed Kurt Cobain, Kurt Cobain, Kurt Cobain. Pretty convincing, isn't it? I know I find it convincing more often than I don't, but then I am particularly vulnerable to these kinds of stories. You know, there is a question that I ask myself about once every 18 months, once every 2 years or so. And this is a question that smart people ask themselves every day, multiple times a day. I would go so far as to say it is the question that keeps a smart person smart. 4 words. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? What if reality is exactly as it seems? What if 9/11 was not an inside job carried out by the American military-industrial complex against its own people to justify a series of power grabs in the Middle East? What if it was just a reaction to decades of carelessness and aggression, centuries of imperialism? What if JFK was not assassinated by his own government? He was murdered by one man, one confused and lonely man who preferred the reality inside his head to the reality outside of it. I can relate to that. Who wanted to be a hero, I can relate to that as well. Who probably died not understanding why he wasn't a hero and why everyone was so mad at him. You know, Kurt Cobain had a genetic predisposition to, in no particular order, substance abuse, paranoia, depression, anxiety, not to mention he was a member of the music industry. These qualities put a person at particularly high risk of suicide. There. Simple, tidy, and most
boring of all, it just makes sense. We are vulnerable to these kinds of stories. Partly because they make our world seem less chaotic, but also because if you stack enough of these stories one on top of each other, you block out the bigger story, the story which is as terrifying as it is verifiably true, and that is that we are marooned out here, stranded on a rock in the middle of nowhere, and bad things are going to keep on happening to good people until one day the worst thing is going to happen to all of the best people at once. An asteroid will hit, or we'll start a nuclear war, or we won't put enough money into developing new antibiotics, and a super virus will wipe us all out. And if we manage to avoid all of those things, one day the ice caps will melt. And if we manage to survive that, one day the sun's gonna explode. And there is no hope of rescue or escape, because who is there to rescue us? Where is there to escape to? We are not taught how to deal with these things, and so we are left to our own devices to come up with ways of distracting ourselves. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. And that's just what works for most of us. For some of us, that is not enough. And those are the people who fly passenger jets into skyscrapers. Those are the people who kill presidents. Those are the people who load up on guns and splatter their brains out all over the family home, while people like me, arseholes, the intrepid keyboard detectives willing to say the things no one else is willing to say because they can see the things no one else is willing to see, will explain to anyone who will listen with unbearable fucking smugness and unrepentant glee that Courtney did it, she did it, Courtney did it, oh, Courtney killed Cobain. You did it, Justin did it, Justin did it, you killed Kurt Cobain, Kurt Cobain, Kurt Cobain, killed Kurt Cobain, Kurt Cobain, Kurt Cobain, na 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 na. You raised that kid on your own.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to the Vanguard. For Spike, the intrepid keyboard warrior, going, I am Matt Wright, and together we are traversing the muddied waters of freedom.
With incredible smugness.
With incredible smugness.
Incredible smugness. That was, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that intro song, which was no doubt revenge for my moth joke last week.
7.5 minutes with four minutes of him going into every conspiracy theory. Yeah.
That's honestly, that should be our intro song because it's pretty appropriate.
It is pretty appropriate. Thank you to the Narcissist Cookbook for letting me use
making that.
Making that and allowing me to use it.
And then for letting people hear it too. Thank you for that experience.
Yeah.
Hey everybody.
The look on your face.
We had a great show. I'm just like,
the look on your face during that.
Having an existential crisis waiting for the show to start. And I'm like, why are we doing any of this even?
So, yeah, that song is called Courtney. Because, Courtney did it. And that is the YouTube version of that song. If you get the album that it's on, you only have, it doesn't have that part in the middle where he talks about the conspiracy theories.
Oh, my favorite part?
Yeah, the best part.
Guy.
Right.
and no one's going to save us.
Right. That part.
So why even live? That was my favorite part. I wasn't ready for. Anyway, so that was a fun song.
That actually the reason that I know that song is because a fan of the Muddied Waters of Freedom. He sent me that. He sent me it in a private message to my personal account. He goes, "I think you might like this," and I watched that video, and I watched that video, and I absolutely loved it. So then I found the Narcissist Cookbook on Facebook, and then I got his albums on iTunes, and then I messaged him, and I said, "Dude, I really love your music," and he messaged back, and now we're friends.
Cool.
Yeah.
And he lets us use his music, so thank you for that.
Right. Claire Queen, for our intro music, we played the YouTube version of Courtney by the Narcissist Cookbook. It's 7.5 minutes long, and it is, and it's an emotional ride.
Courtney, if you ever want to question, maybe not. If you're ever questioning life, don't listen to Courtney. If you ever say, "Hey, I'm feeling too good about things right now," that's when you want to listen to Courtney by the Narcissist Cookbook.
Yes.
So allow me to thank, because Matt hasn't thanked anyone yet. Allow me to thank Kroger for this delicious drinking water, and allow me to thank Costco for these strawberries that I already ate while listening to that song.
Allow me to thank Grassroots Kava House for the kava that I am drinking on today's episode. That was the free bird of conspiracy songs.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. That is the best. Yes.
Yes.
That was the free bird of conspiracy. It may be equally sad as well. Bulavanaka.
Bulavanaka. So, today is episode 100.
The 100th episode.
The 100th episode. Oh, and also thank you to Andrew Barber for my free Dead Woke shirt.
Yeah.
With the Twin Towers in the background.
That went with the song.
It went with the song. It was covered in the song.
That's the free bird of shirts.
Right, it's the free bird of shirts to go with the free bird of conspiracy songs.
Conspiracy songs, yeah.
Whew. So.
Yeah, 100 episodes.
100 episodes.
Spanning, 2.5 years? 2 years?
Spanning the Mueller report.
Spanning basically the entire, from beginning to, well, we've kept going, but
right.
It was like, what, a couple days before or after the Mueller investigation started?
Yep. We started December of 2016, and we're still going. And the Mueller report kind of started right around that. That was when the McCain dossier, not the McCain dossier,
the Steele dossier.
The Steele dossier, but that McCain turned over about Trump getting prostitutes to pee on him or whatever. That's when that all started getting kicked off, and so we have been a show for the Mueller report, and
the other Muddied Waters of Freedom is having a prostitute pee on you.
Really?
I'm trying. The segue, right? That's a segue.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sure. I don't know what you were segueing.
Oh no, that was the entirety of my segue.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so we've been on for 2.5 years, 100 episodes of this show. We've got 35 episodes of your show.
Yep.
We've got 30. This will be week 36 for me on the writer's block. Jason, I think, has 16 out now.
Yeah, and he's going to surpass us because he's doubling up every.
Right, because he's doing 2 a week.
Yeah. We'll be like, yeah, it's our 200th episode and our 7,035th episode of Mr. America, The Bearded Truth, because that's how math works.
Right. And I mean, I have a feeling because they are expecting. He's not expecting. His wife is expecting. He can't have a child.
Well, he's expecting his wife.
Right. He's expecting his wife to have a child. So I'm I'm guessing that when that happens, he may have to slow down a little bit. I mean, so like miss one a month kind of a thing. Not a lot, Jason.
Possibly, or it could go the other way where he's like, all these kids are in the house and he just locks himself in a room and does episodes every day.
Man, we are getting off to quite the start here on the old comments list. After people were inquiring about the song, and Andy reminding me that I got him the shirt. Islam is the right religion, one God. Please read the Quran.
Who said that?
That would be Periscope user FHFDG053256687.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
HFDG
The
Numbers.
0540.
3. Yeah. Whoo.
Well, hey, you have a right to that opinion.
You do have a right to that opinion.
So, guys, after listening to Courtney by the Narcissist, be sure to check out the Quran.
It's a good read. That's what I hear.
Good read.
Good read.
Good book.
Yeah.
One of the best sellers.
It is. It's up there.
I think so.
Speaking
Quran.
Speaking of religion and bad things that happen when people subscribe to it.
Also okay.
Yep. In Ponway, California, just outside of San Diego, for anybody who doesn't know where Ponway, California is, there was this...
Is that Ponway?
Ponway?
Oh, okay. Well, Ponway.
Ponway. I mean, I don't know. Oh, Poway. Poway, not Ponway. Sorry, I don't know how I read that wrong. Poway. Somebody did a thing. Some people did a thing.
Well, good things, yes.
Yes, there was a
To
shoot.
some Passover worshipers.
Yes, so some people did some things some person did some things to some Passover worshipers. A guy went into a synagogue. He was trying to copy the New Zealand attacker on the mosque that was out there, and the Pittsburgh attacker that attacked the synagogue in Pittsburgh 6-ish months ago.
Yeah, last year. Yeah.
Yeah, he claimed that they were his inspirations. He went into the synagogue during Passover and started firing off, and one person died and 3 more were injured. He tried to live stream. He was unable to get the live stream to work. It was reported that during the attack, he did the subscribe to PewDiePie, same chant that the New Zealander did.
Yeah.
This has called for PewDiePie. Now he's calling for a moratorium of the subscribe to PewDiePie meme because he doesn't want it to be associated with hate, and that's where people have taken it.
Like, what is, like, these are ostensibly fans of PewDiePie. Why would you destroy PewDiePie? Like, obviously he's not going to want to be associated with your mass shooting. Like, what, why? I don't get it. But I also don't get why you would want to shoot up a house of worship either. So what do I know?
Right. I did not read his manifesto this time.
Yeah, I didn't read it either.
Right. Normally I do. This time I did not.
I heard that he was a copycat, and I thought it's going to just be the same thing that, you know.
Yeah, he did. I don't believe he was like the eco-terrorist that the New Zealand shooter was.
Right.
He claimed to hate Trump, but he also claimed to not be a liberal. Like, so, I have no idea. This is just one of those situations in which a whacked out guy
Yeah,
a,
yeah,
a whacked out guy. He he did something, and it's
yeah,
awful.
yeah, yeah.
It's awful, and he will be in prison probably for a very, very, very long time in California.
Yeah, and only because it's California, he's not going to get executed. But he will. He's not coming out.
California
The
has the death penalty.
Oh, I thought they had a moratorium. I thought.
Oh, did they put it? Did they put it?
Yeah, I think the previous governor did a moratorium. I put it this way: if there's a death penalty in California, he's probably a candidate for it. Otherwise, he's probably just going to spend the rest of his life in prison.
Right.
So this is something that's very common in fringe ideologies. It attracts me. Not his particular ideology, but it attracts people that are just very consistent in their ideology. It also attracts crazies who just want to be associated with fringe things. And so you see this in like everything from alt-right circles, anarchist circles, socialist circles, vegan circles. Like you see it in any kind of like very extreme, final conclusion type of ideologies. You see these kind of you'll see some crazies attached to it just because they're attached to things that are outside of the mainstream. And I think that you're seeing this over and over again with like these like 4chan alt-right white nationalist types where, first of all, the ideology itself has major problems, but second of all, it's also attracting people who are looking for a reason, to kill a bunch of people, and this one's as good as any other. If it hadn't been this, it would have been, like I said, veganism. There was that lady that shot up the YouTube headquarters, and she was, a vegan activist, and these things attract all kinds. You see it less with the vegans because their B12 levels are very low, and so they just don't have the energy.
Right.
For
The energy to pull off a mass shooting is just not as prevalent.
they just get really angsty.
Right.
Also, their magnesium's typically low, so they're cramping a lot.
Right. Did you ever watch that show Community?
With Joel, whatever his name
Joel
is.
McHale, yeah.
I've caught like an episode. I know Chevy Chase was in it, but I've never really like watched it.
There's an episode in the season that nobody really talks about, but it's got this one really funny part because they like threw in like this weird, all of their lives interconnected backstory kind of thing. But Britta, the one of the female leads, the blonde one, the kind of hippie ditzy, I'm a socialist that fights for freedom and talks about civil liberties, which those two don't ever match up. She was celebrating, in the past, she was celebrating Jeff's win over, he represented a stripper who got off of a prostitution charge or something. I can't remember why. But she was congratulating him on it, and she turned around to her feminist group of people, and she's like, this is our first big win. We're going to, we can build off of this. And they said, actually, we kind of thought that this would be like our swan song. Like we were going to go out with a big win and then that would be it. She goes, no, we need to keep this mother rolling. She goes, And one of the other girls said, I don't really feel the cause anymore. I mean, I had a hamburger last week and I'm not cold all the time anymore. And I laughed for about 10 minutes at that line, and I continue to today. Anytime I think of vegans and then veganism.
You just think of vegan.
Yeah, you look chilly. Let me get you a jacket and a hamburger.
Yeah. Let me get you some heme from the red meat,
right?
So you get some nutrients in your system. It's a terrible thing what happened with the shooting, and I actually and this is somewhat unrelated. There was another shooting. I don't think we know the motive yet. I think they do have the shooter, but it was at UNCC, the UNC in Charlotte, which is like, I'm in Charlotte right now. And so it's like, I don't know, 10 miles away from where I am or 5 miles away. We don't know what the thing is, but people were saying, they're worried that it was yet another copycat, that this is now going to be a thing where every angsty, every angsty person on Reddit and 4chan is going to go, pop off at their school or, at a church or whatever. So very sad.
There was also one in Massachusetts today.
Good.
At a mall. So not the happiest day in the news.
No.
Not the happiest
No.
day in the news, even with Venezuela. Even with Venezuela in the midst of a coup, just not a lot of stuff.
Speaking of which, Venezuela's in the midst of a coup.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Venezuela's in the midst of a coup, and the U.S. definitely did not back it. Wait, no, they did. They support it, but they're not, funding it. Probably, maybe, I don't know.
They're not publicly. It's one of those things where 10 years from now they're going to be like, well, what they were really doing, and we're all going to go, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
the U.S. government was doing something shady and not telling us about it to undermine a foreign country. No way, that's a lie. That's a lie from fake news. It'll probably be Julian Assange. It'll probably be WikiLeaks that'll tell us about it. So here's our thing with Venezuela, and we're probably going to get some comments from people that are in favor of us, working to remove Maduro and the Chavistas. Here's the problem. First of all, the U.S. doesn't have a good track record of replacing bad governments with better governments.
No.
They almost always fail. One, I guess, bright spot, if you could call it that, would have been in post-World War II. But the difference there was that first those countries were completely obliterated and then rebuilt from scratch in spending the equivalent of what would be tens of trillions of dollars now to remake entire parts of the planet. That's different from a few tactical strikes taking out a leader and then, replacing them with someone else. Right. It just doesn't work right. And Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam. Well, Vietnam failed.
Yeah, Vietnam failed. Korea failed.
Korea failed. The Khmer Rouge was very much a reaction to U.S. bombings and actions in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam conflict. The U.S. does not have a good. And I have Venezuelan Facebook friends and associates who are like, please, we need help. And it's like, yeah, you guys could end up being like Syria, because that's another attempt that did not end well.
Right.
And I'm sitting here, I eat whenever I want, so I'm not going to try to pretend that I get what it's like to be in Venezuela right now, where the average Venezuelan has lost 17 pounds or something like that in the last 10 years. And they weren't fat. Like we could lose. The average American could use losing 17 pounds. They were already slim and fit to begin with. They're not doing well, but they're still better off than Syria. And I think sometimes in the midst of that, they're not getting how much worse the U.S. military could make it. The other thing is that the person we'd be replacing Maduro with probably is not a nicer guy, but he's equally socialist.
Right.
So he's bringing the same economic system.
Yeah.
So, but he's going to be nice about it.
So essentially, the way that I read that is, I'll give you oil, and you lift any sanctions you have.
Pretty much, and lifting the sanctions will help
right.
their economy. But it's not the sanctions that caused this. There weren't sanctions in place when Venezuela hyperinflation was starting. It made it worse. It certainly hasn't helped things, but Venezuela is falling apart because they are increasingly centrally planning the economy and all the terrible things that happen as a result of that. If you look at the Holodomor in the Ukraine during the Soviet Union, the Great Leap Forward, the Khmer Rouge, all of these things, what happened in Zimbabwe, all of these are the results of central planning. You have people who don't understand how each given sector of the economy works, just trying to wing it and using the force of law to control it, and everything falls apart as a result. And that's what happened in Venezuela. So now you're going to get a new guy that comes in who, yes, it's going to be maybe a little bit better, and he might be nicer about it, but it's still going to get worse. It just won't get worse as fast. And do we want, on this side, do we want our friends and neighbors to go over there and risk fighting a hot war with Russian military, not to mention Venezuelans, to maybe possibly make things better, but also maybe possibly make things way worse?
Right.
And no. Even if I wasn't an anarchist, I'd say no to that.
Right. And we have the America's obviously supporting Guaido.
Of course, yeah.
Guaido.
Guaido, yeah.
Guaido. We're obviously supporting Guaido. On the side of Maduro is China, Russia, and Cuba. So you're already starting to pick teams at this point for World War III,
Yep.
and Venezuela should not be the jumping off point.
No. There shouldn't be a jumping off point. Like, here is my thing. And we get a lot of people, especially conservatives, who are like, if libertarians got their way with foreign policy, it would be Russia and China who would be doing all this, nation building crap. To which I say, okay, how has that helped us?
Right.
Like, it hasn't. It has led to massive deficit spending. It has led to massive polarization of politics in the U.S. It's led to, thousands of dead Americans, thousands of affected, surviving families of those deaths, uncounted, tens or hundreds of thousands of wounded people, millions of people with PTSD, not to mention all the hundreds of thousands of people killed by the U.S. military, everyone hating us. Like, if you go into parts of the world and say you're American, you have to apologize starting off because they associate you with, all these terrible things your government did that you may not have even supported. How has that helped us? Like, if everyone wants to hate China instead, good. Then they can like us. Like, I've never heard a compelling reason for us to continue to hold the poisoned chalice of global military dominance. Like, how does that help you and me? It doesn't.
Right. It makes no sense to me. Like, when we were going over to Iraq and Afghanistan, and these people deserve democracy was like the mantra that so many people out there were kind of chanting. And what if they don't want it? Well, everybody wants democracy. Why?
I don't want democracy.
I don't really want democracy. That means that 52% of the people that 52% of the country, 52% of the people that I disagree with are dictating me.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are going to disagree with this, but it's gang rape on just a huge scale.
It's like the Hunger Games just spread out further, right? Like, I mean, and so there are arguments as to whether autocracy, which is, one or a small handful of people controlling everything, is better than democracy. And the argument in favor of democracy, obviously, is that, well, it's asking the people at large, even though in the U.S. most adults aren't even eligible to vote, but that's a whole other subject. So they disqualify a bunch of people and then make the rest of them apathetic so that only a handful are voting anyway. But all that aside, the other thing democracy does is gives people the veneer of it being their fault. Well, we get the government we deserve. No, you don't. The government's imposing itself on you and not giving you an option to opt out. Right. But people say that. If it were an autocracy, we could all be like, well, that guy's got to go, and we're sick of this, and we deserve freedom. But when it's democracy, it's like, well, the people have spoken. So in one way, it's better because it sort of outsources or crowdsources the tyranny. So it's a little softer usually than an autocrat would be. The flip side of that is that it also entrenches the ability of that democracy to do horrific things with the public kind of just shrugging their shoulders and going, well, vote harder next time, guys.
And I've always hated that sentence because how hard can somebody vote? Just push that button. I'm going to fill this circle in fuller than I did last time because I want this vote to count more.
I'm gonna feel it hard. I'm gonna knock that Chad. You guys still have the Chads, right? Or they got rid of that in Florida?
They got rid of. They got rid
Oh,
of.
okay. Because I would have the shit out of that Chad. I'd be like, Chad. See, in South Carolina, we have the voting machines.
Yeah, that's what
So
we
you
have
run the
those
risk
now.
of breaking the tablet if you vote too hard. If you're like, and then it breaks, you've now destroyed public property.
So here
That's it.
here in Florida now, at least in my district, I don't know if this is all districts, but at least in my district, they've taken a page from the Department of Education, and they've given us essentially standardized tests where you have to fill in the bubble, and then they Scantron it.
Nice. That no way that could fail.
Right, no way.
So you just vote. You just go B. You alternate between B and C.
Right.
And hope for the best.
Either that, or you just go C right down the line.
C right down the line.
Just like right down the line, because like 52% of answers are C, so at least you're going to get a 50.
That's how we knew before any other news outlet who won the Florida elections in this last cycle was we just looked at who was C.
Right, we looked at who was C, and it just happened to be DeSantis, and C in the Senate race just happened to be Rick Scott. So we knew
it was C.
It was C. Right. Michael Stott on the book of faces said, "Persuade others in your community." I assume he was like this because it was a question mark. But yeah, that's like saying persuade others on Facebook.
So you can.
You can try.
All major social changes happen as a result of people changing other people's minds, usually by having a gun pointed at them at some point, or the possibility of a gun pointed at them. But at the very least, people were changing people's minds. But you don't need democracy to do that. Democracy does an end run around that and says, well, in the meantime, whatever the majority or even the plurality, because if there's more than one answer to the question or more than one candidate, now it's not even the majority of eligible voters, it's now the plurality of eligible voters. Whichever the biggest group thinks, we're going to go with that, and we're going to force everyone else into it at gunpoint. Right. So you are, more often than not, almost always, a minority of people are forcing a majority of people because, at least in the U.S., huge numbers of people, because of felony convictions or child support, various other things, are not eligible to vote. And then many more are just sort of soft anarchists where they're like, I don't trust any of these people anyway. And so they're apathetic, or they're like me, who doesn't really want to use proxy violence against a bunch of strangers. And so we just kind of bow out. And so you have a minority of a minority, a sliver of adults deciding for every other person in that area, whatever that presumed jurisdiction is. So, no, democracy is garbage. Even the founders, when they created the system, there were democratic elements to it, but like the state legislatures chose the Senate, the electors chose the president. Really, the only direct votes you were doing on the federal level were for your representative, and that was it. And the representatives at that time only represented like a couple thousand people. So it was much more, localized or whatever. But no, democracy is anything that you can do through democracy, you can do just as easily or more easily through a voluntary system, just influencing those around you.
Right. The guest that's going to be on the writer's block in 2 weeks commented and said, democracy is two wolves and a lamb deciding what's for dinner. Liberty is a well-armed lamb. Some degenerate dead guy from the 1700s.
Yes. So, and I like that you said liberty instead of a republic, because democracy is two wolves and a lamb deciding what's for dinner. A representative republic is three wolves and two lambs deciding what's for dinner, the lambs contesting the result, and in a landmark 5 wolves to 4 lambs decision, Chief Justice Fido. That's Fido the wolf. I don't know. What's a wolf name? Wolfie. Chief Justice Wolfie Wolferson. Wolferstein.
Wolferstein. Yeah.
Yeah. decides in a landmark decision that they're going to eat the lambs.
Right.
That's the republic version, the constitutional republic version of how that would go. Liberty is the lamb saying, "I don't care what you want. I'm going to kill you, tactical McNuke you,
Right.
if you try to come onto my property. Don't violate the lamb now."
Right. So yeah, you can't really vote harder. It's impossible.
You could try, but you're just going to probably break the tablet
Right.
or you're scanned on paper.
Right. Speaking of people who voted hard,
Yes.
the members of the Brooklyn delegation, sure, the members of the Brooklyn delegation hang their heads in shame once again.
Yes.
As their duly elected representative, the not as hot as she used to be, AOC.
The ever quotable and yet increasingly less
Attractive.
hate bangable. Although I found Sandy the dancing girl attractive.
Right.
I have not found Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez attractive.
Right. Well, she's less attractive than she was when she was Sandy.
Physically and just how she acts.
Mm-hmm.
Sandy?
Dancing Sandy is much more attractive than angry, petulant AOC.
Yes,
Right.
definitely. And so what does she do, Matt?
She
This week, what she do? Every week we have we're almost as bad as like Fox, where like every week we have like bash AOC,
right.
segment.
If anybody wants to send us money for a sponsorship, we will name the Bashing AOC segment after you. And every week we will do the AOC segment, and we'll be
I
like,
like that.
and it'll be like, this is the Shane Sweeney hates Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez portion of our show.
Hour of power.
Right.
That's funny.
But-
I like that idea.
I mean, I'm okay with it. But she came out and she started going about how the VA, which, side note, for years when I was a child, I thought that they were all talking about the state of Virginia, since that's where I grew up. And I was like, why does everybody hate Virginia so much?
Everyone hate Virginia.
Right. But no, they were talking about
Kill themselves.
right. They're talking about the Veteran Affairs, which AOC possibly knows. She's saying that the
She might be defending Virginia. She might. Yeah, well, the governor of the VA did blackface, but he still cares.
but he still cares, and he knows how to do the moonwalk, so it's totally okay.
Fine, guys, I don't know why everyone's so upset. Why you keep going to the Virginia parking lot and killing yourself. Anyway, go ahead.
So she
I like that.
she is $1 donation from Chris Reynolds.
Well, then, and as the highest bidder,
Right, this is the Chris Reynolds hates AOC segment.
AOC segment.
Right.
Brought to you by Chris Reynolds,
Brought to you
attorney
by
at law.
Chris Reynolds, attorney at law. She's sticking up for the VA, and she was quoted as saying, there's this new bill that's coming out. This is kind of important. You kind of need the backstory.
I'm not peeing, by the way. I'm washing fruit.
Sure. You kind of need the backstory. There is a bill that is coming out that is going to privatize certain sections of the VA.
Nice.
Dan Caldwell, who is I believe he's the founder of Concerned Veterans for America. He supports this bill fully. He thinks it's a great idea because we need to make sure that, in his mind, that we need to take care of the veterans, and he thinks that privatizing the VA is the way to go.
Is the best way to do it. And if you're going to send people around the world to fight and die, you need to take care of them if they actually make it back. So no, I didn't listen. If there's one thing the government should be doing, it's taking care of people that they signed up to fight for them.
Right.
And yes, privatizing it would easily be the best way to do that.
Absolutely. And just as an update, this is now the Shane Sweeney hates AOC segment.
Someone's paying up, by the way, Shane.
Or Chris.
I'm physically the closest to you of the two of us, so I will be in charge of showing up at your restaurant and making sure that you pay. Is it $2? I presume
$2. Yeah. So
yeah, I'm getting that. That's a 2 spot I'm getting.
Right. So AOC has come out and she said during a rally meeting of some sort, they are trying to fix the VA for pharmaceutical companies. They are trying to fix the VA for insurance corporations. And ultimately, they are trying to fix the VA for a for-profit healthcare industry that does not put people or veterans first, which amazingly, she said this without code switching. And we have a responsibility to protect it. She didn't know how to code switch into veteran.
Protect the VA.
She didn't know how to code switch into veteran. She only knows how to code switch into urban.
On the VA.
Right.
Girlfriend.
Chris Reynolds just offered $3 in a lap dance.
Nice.
Right.
Well, then, Shane, you have to add at least a good solid $25 for the lap dance.
Yeah, because if you haven't seen Chris Reynolds, he's worth at least a 20 spot.
I definitely, and I'm not even into that, but just he's that solidly built of a guy.
That's true.
You just have to respect it, even if you don't want it.
Right.
If you don't want the lap dance, you got to respect the market value, right? Like, I mean, so now we're at $28.
Right.
So I mean, she's got to defend the VA, right? Because not only is it single pay, it's actually not just single, it's government healthcare. So single payer, obviously, and I know you know this, but I'm telling, and Chris Reynolds possibly knows this, but for everyone else, single payer is where the doctors themselves might still be private practice. They don't work for the government, but the only person paying for it is the government. And that may seem like a bit of I'm missing something. What's happening?
Do your explanation. I'll say afterwards.
Okay. With single payer, like in Canada, most of the hospitals, doctors, etc., are still privately owned and still privately run. The only person that pays them is their province's health insurance program. And so it's government paid healthcare, but it's not government run healthcare. And there is still a difference because there's still competing providers and things like that. So it's not a good system, but it's better than the VA system or the national healthcare system model in the UK, where the government runs healthcare. It's cheaper per person, but it's because more people are going to die.
Right.
It's a worse system. It is rationed healthcare, and so for an actual ideological socialist, not just a liberal, but an actual socialist like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, that's the end goal. When they say Medicare for all, that's not what they don't want Medicare for all. They want the VA for all. They don't even want Medicaid for all. They want the VA for all. And so they have to defend the VA, even though if the US government isn't able to provide good health care for a couple million people, multiply that by over 100, and now that's what you're putting in the lap of the U.S. federal government to do for all of us. But she has to defend it because that's her. I mean, that is her.
It's her platform. Right.
That's her platform. That is her end goal: is government being in charge of everything like that. So yeah, that's she may not want to defend it, but she has to defend it.
And she's defending it because she says that the VA that they have in her district is fantastic. I don't know how accurate that is. For many people in her district, it may be the only health care that they can get.
Right.
So
I'm sure you can find people in her district that are not happy with the VA. Every once in a while, I will meet someone who goes, yeah, you know what, the VA is not terrible. And it's one of two groups. One is they don't really use it that much. So when they do use it, it's, they go see a doctor for a checkup or whatever, and that's fine. The other group are people that needed specialized surgery and stuff like that because of stuff that happened, during combat. And so they have these VA excellence centers of excellence that do these like top level, basically almost like battlefield surgeries, but they're doing them in a hospital setting, and they have these experts. For the vast majority of people who actually have chronic, constant needs, and it's not some kind of like surge thing that they need, they hate the system. And it still costs a fortune, because that's what happens with centrally planned stuff like government healthcare. So, but she has to defend it. She has to defend it.
Exactly. And what's going to not look great for her optics is the fact that Donald Trump agreed with her that the VA is doing well. And he said that it was his administration that is the reason that it has improved so much over the last few years. Now, I don't like using anecdotal evidence to support things.
Right.
But, and I'm not really sure how many people it requires to no longer be anecdotal.
Right. It becomes a case study after a minute.
Right, exactly. And I know a lot of people who are in the military and former military, and all of them have the same stories for me. All of them.
Yeah.
I've heard one person who, this guy, I grew up with him, and he, big Bernie supporter, he probably loves AOC. I haven't been on his Facebook in a while. Wishes that we could go full socialist. He thinks that the VA is great, and he's never had a problem with it. Everybody else that I have spoken to has talked about how awful it is, how they just throw medication at you, how they lose you, how they don't really care that you're there. All this kind of, look, every horror that you can imagine when you are in a state where you are either sick and you need help, or you're mentally ill and you need help, or you've injured yourself and you need help.
Yep.
Nobody has ever had a good story for me that I have spoken to personally. And I look at it in the fact that every day, I believe 12 or 13 veterans kill themselves every single day.
Yeah.
And almost all of them have gone through the VA system and have been medicated by the VA.
Right, and now, obviously, there every day a large number of Americans kill themselves. So it's not as though
22. Shane Sweeney, 22. That's the right number. Thank you, Shane. I was like,
higher, yeah. But so obviously, it's not to say that if those people hadn't been veterans, none of them would have killed themselves. Like, I mean, there's unfortunately, a number of them that would have anyway. But that is a disproportionately very, very high number for that small of a subset of a group of people compared to like Americans at large. And they come from, veterans kind of span the demographic and the racial, ethnic, even income level demographics of the U.S. in general. So it's not like, oh, well, most of them are poor, so they're more likely to do it than people that are wealthy or something like that. It's really like what they have gone through, both with any level of combat. And also, I mean, like, a good number of veterans never actually saw combat. They may have seen traumatic and stressful things, but it's truly just the way they've been treated by the VA system that ends up being one of the major, if not the major, contributor to them killing themselves. How many people have killed themselves in the parking lot of the Blue Cross building or Humana or Kaiser Permanente or whatever? Why is this almost exclusively happening at the VA?
Right.
There's a reason for that. Like, it's I mean, and that, again, anecdotes are not data, but if it's not happening anywhere else but it's happening in the VA, that's a good hint that maybe there's a problem with the VA. But just like Bernie Sanders back in the day had to defend bread lines, AOC has to defend the VA. Right. They have to defend it because that's what they want. They can't convince you to embrace socialism unless they say, oh, no, bread lines are great. They're free. You just wait in line and you get free bread. You have to defend it.
Yeah. Chris Reynolds says that he's literally at a private hospital right now, and it's not too shabby. And granted, he has good health insurance. Exactly. And I hope that the reason that you're at that hospital isn't a serious one. I saw you earlier today, so I'm guessing that I hope you're okay. Call me later.
Hope you're okay.
Yeah, call me later.
Thoughts and prayers to Chris Reynolds, who at the moment is our highest bidder.
No, so Shane Sweeney said $4, and Chris still gives us a lap dance.
So best of both worlds.
Right, best of both worlds.
I'm actually scared at the prospect of Chris Reynolds giving me a lap dance. So that's all you. I'll just take the $4. Or we'll split the $4. You know what? We'll split the $4.
We'll split the $4.
You can have the lap dance. We'll split the $4. That lap dance is all yours, champ. So wishing you well, Chris.
Yeah, wishing you well.
But yeah, like, listen, I have MS. For those who don't know, I'm in Charlotte for medical stuff. I get multiple times a year tens of thousands of dollars worth of service. I get an infusion every month that costs would cost $18,000. It's cost my insurance company $18,000 every single year to keep my MS at bay. That doesn't happen at the NHS. My treatment, in order to get the treatment that I'm on in the UK, you have to be so profoundly disabled and have tried multiple other medications and had years of demonstrating that it didn't work before they'll even consider giving it to you. You pretty much have to be so far along that they're just keeping you from dying at this point. I'm still walking around. I'm still doing pretty well. And it's because we have a private healthcare system that I'm able to do as well as I can with MS compared to, I talk to other people in other countries and they're like, yeah, it's free. And it's like, you're dying. And so leave my healthcare alone.
Right.
If you want to talk about if it's not broke, don't fix it. There's problems with our healthcare system, but it's not that the government isn't involved enough. It's the opposite.
Right. So Dan Caldwell, again, from Concerned Veterans of America, which, fun fact, one of the last people I had a beer with.
CVA?
Dan Caldwell. I was at.
Oh, you had a beer with Dan Caldwell.
Yeah, I was at a CVA event. I was at a CVA event over in Tampa. One of my friends from Nashville was performing at it, and she invited me over, and I was hanging out. And afterwards, we all went out to grab a couple of beers, and she introduced me to Dan, and I ended up talking to him for a little bit. Nice guy.
Nice.
But yeah.
Sure.
But he said that she's using the straw man argument, and he did say that there are areas where the VA is not bad, but overall it's failing. And he said, You're seeing more people like Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez in Congress and outside trying to stop that bill, talking about the bill which would privatize certain sections of the VA, trying to stop that bill and the implementation of it and keep veterans trapped in many cases in failing VA hospitals. And that is what CVA is essentially trying to end, is that.
Like, Concerned Veterans of America isn't a private healthcare booster group. Like, they're not trying to in it with the pharmaceutical companies. They're trying to, like, I can't. So I'm not a veteran. My dad is a veteran, but he also gets most of his stuff through private care, thankfully. And like, the VA is not a good. I've talked to, again, two people who had largely good experiences. One barely uses it, and the other one had like all these crazy surgeries after losing a limb and having other issues during combat. So they have largely unique experiences compared to the vast majority of veterans who have, a regular need for healthcare and have chronic issues. A lot of them PTSD. And they're not doing well. Excuse me.
Bless you.
So, thank you. But yeah, so I mean, the tone deafness required to say, yeah, the VA, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's the equal tone deafness of a Bernie Sanders saying that bread lines are super neato. And for the same reason, we have to defend the end result of socialism because it's what we want. It's what our goal is.
Exactly.
So speaking of, I don't have the notes in front of me.
Yeah,
Speaking
I was
of,
like, let's see how you do a segue without notes.
the,
Speaking of Trump
yes,
tweeting things at people, because
people.
he tweeted at AOC that he agreed with her that the VA is not bad.
It's a legitimate segue. It's a legitimate segue.
We'll count it. Ding. He is currently in a very public, very embroiled battle with libertarian hero Judge Napolitano.
Yep.
Judge Napolitano, which I actually, right back here, I have an autographed book from Judge Napolitano that the former co-host of the show gave me for my birthday one year.
Is that to my left? No, that's Rush Limbaugh.
The autographed picture of Rush Limbaugh, that's
Yeah.
that's back
That's
here.
right there.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, that's not Judge Napolitano. So Judge Andrew Napolitano, for those who don't know, he is a retired judge who is about as libertarian as will be allowed on major media. Him and John Stossel are kind of the two where it's like, wow, you're letting them talk on TV in front of millions of people. But especially Judge Napolitano, because he really breaks down like the legal basis for stuff, and he's not. So he has been very popular. He had a show on Fox Business, which they ended up going too far with some of their critiques of government. It ended up getting canceled, but he's still a regular on Fox and on other networks. He was very beloved by the right during the Obama years because he would often criticize Obama because he's a libertarian, and they go, yeah, screw Obama. And then when he would criticize Obama on stuff that conservatives would have otherwise liked, but they just didn't like it because Obama was doing it, they're like, yeah, screw Obama. So they really loved Andrew Napolitano, Judge Knapp, during the last, during that 8-year period. Not so much during the Trump administration,
Right.
because now he is remaining consistent as a libertarian and also criticizing Trump. There are times when he agrees with Trump on stuff, and they love, and the right loves him again. But I love when I will see Napolitano on Fox or something, and you'll look in the comments on the video. You'll look in the comments, and people will go, "I used to like you, Judge, but now you've changed." And it's like, no, he has actually remained remarkably consistent over the last decade.
Right.
You just are okay with it now because it's a Republican doing it. You changed.
Right.
He did not.
Your Overton window moved.
Your Overton Dutch door has now opened on the other side, and he it's a visual, and he I had nothing, but I was trying to think of a double window,
Right.
But yeah, you're the one that changed. He is still a libertarian, and he's not even like they would hate us because he's not even a hardcore. He's more of like a constitutionalist libertarian where he wants to return to the original, limitations that are set forward in the Constitution as originally written and so forth. He's not Matt is I guess still kind of a minarchist who's slowly being turned into an anarchist by his Jewish co-host.
Right.
And I'm an anarchist. Like, we're way more extreme than him. I'm like, make him look like a Democrat, but I respect him because he's consistent and he is not he's not a hypocrite, and he doesn't do like the partisan thing. He agrees with something or disagrees with it based on the ideology. So even though there are times where he'll start talking about how the Constitution should limit this, and I'm like, that means it sucks because it doesn't limit anything. Read Spooner. But even when I disagree with him, I still respect that he is consistent and comes from a very it was appropriate that he was a judge because he's very judicial in how he approaches things. So I respect him a lot. So if Trump disagrees with him, Trump is wrong. What is this? I haven't actually thought. What is the specific disagreement even about?
So it all has to do with the Mueller report.
Okay.
It all has to do with the Mueller report. And last week, you and I were talking about how many of the crimes that he was the obstruction crimes that the Mueller report kind of alludes to having been
Right.
committed.
Attempted or thought
Right.
of, yeah.
And we were like, well, there was nothing for them to be investigating. There was nothing for them to be investigating. So do these really count as crimes?
Okay.
So process crimes. They were all process crimes. So if there's no crime for them to be investigating, are they actually committing any?
There was no process that was being obstructed.
Right.
Right.
So the judge said the statute prohibits all attempts to interfere with the government. So if you think you are interfering with the government, if your purpose is to interfere with the government in order to save yourself, not to help the government, then you have committed the crime of obstruction based on the way that the law is written.
Okay.
He did not say that he agreed with the law. He didn't say that he thought that the law was... He just said the way that the law is written, this is how it's written. If you are obstructing, if you are interfering with the government in order to save yourself and not to help the government, then you have committed the crime of obstruction.
So if the prosecutor determines that you weren't just being difficult, but you were actually trying to obstruct what they were doing, even if it turns out nothing was done, there was no actual crime as a result of that, you're still interfering with an investigation.
Right. You are still interfering. You've still committed obstruction. So Trump, and he did this on Shep Smith's.
Nice.
That'll make sense later.
Of all the people, yeah.
Yeah, that'll make sense later. So Trump, very not happy about this.
Yes.
Got his tiny little nubby fingers working, and he hit the old Twitter, and furiously typing. I don't know if it was at 5 a.m., but we're going to pretend it was at 5 a.m. and he was taking a crap, as he does.
Yeah, he was on the toilet. 5 a.m. toilet tweet,
Just
yep.
5 a.m. toilet thumb tweeting. Tweets out, and he said, ever since Judge... And I'm trying to do this one from memory. I just wrote down like what the bullet points of the tweet.
What he said, yeah. Yep.
Ever since Judge Napolitano begged me for a seat on SCOTUS and asked for a pardon for one of his friends, he has been salty. Oh, and he is also friends with the low-rating Shep Smith, which apparently is an insult. To be friends with somebody who has low ratings.
On Fox News. Who has the lower ratings on Fox News? Only a few million people watch Shep Smith.
Right.
He is nothing if not entertaining.
He is nothing if not entertaining.
By the way, I love the... Well, yeah, I think the VA is doing pretty well right now. You're welcome. I like that. That was nice, but that was a good counterpoint there. But so I'm actually surprised because I would have thought that wasn't the case. But he's also a judge, and I honestly, I don't consider myself a legal expert, even in complying. And so if a former federal judge is saying, and one who's pretty consistent in just interpreting the Constitution and not, applying how he thinks it should be used, but how it's, or, just applying how laws are written, he's probably right. I know Alan Dershowitz supposedly wrote a counter to what he was saying,
right.
But Alan Dershowitz, who, by the way, is also a good attorney, he also has a history of, like, his partisan views getting involved in his, application of what he thinks it should or shouldn't be. And he's come to like Trump almost entirely because of Trump being like a Zionist, basically. I get to say that because I'm Jewish, but it is what it is. Alan Dershowitz is pretty hardcore leftist on most things, and now he loves Trump. So anyway, yeah. So I mean, the fun thing here for libertarians is that for the, I guess, wing of libertarians who have supported Trump, the Trumpertarians, if you will, one of their refrains has been, well, he might appoint Judge Napolitano to the Supreme Court. And after Trump appointed Neil Gorsuch, it almost maybe kind of sounded like maybe he might.
It sounded kind of like it was a thing that could possibly happen.
And also because he has a relationship with Judge Napolitano. They're both from New York. They both got that kind of New York thing going.
They both did. They both have an extended history with Fox. Like they both. I believe that he was on the judge's show multiple times, and they've known each other for years.
Yeah. So it was plausible, but I never really. So the reason I didn't think it would happen is because Trump knows that Judge Napolitano wouldn't hesitate to be the biggest critic of something that Trump is. So if the administration's in a case in front of the Supreme Court, Judge Napolitano would have zero problem with being at the head of opposing, of being for the other side that's against Trump if he agrees with them. So I think just because he's so independent, I didn't think that would happen. And then once he appointed Kavanaugh, I'm like, Judge Napolitano is not happening.
Right.
Supreme Court Justice Napolitano is not happening. And especially when, Napolitano is continuing to criticize Trump the same way he would Obama. This is not someone who is auditioning for a judicial role from a guy who is not going to appoint you to anything if you disagree with him publicly. Not happening.
And the official attorney of Muddied Waters Media, Chris Reynolds, attorney at law. He says that that is the correct definition of obstruction.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I, like Matt was saying on last week's episode, we were of the opinion that, okay, so if the cops come to my house and they're like, we want to come in and we want to come in and check for whatever, and I'm like, no, screw you, and then it turns out I didn't do anything wrong anyway, then I wasn't obstructing justice. But it sounds like no, if they had a warrant and I refused to cooperate, I'd still be obstructing justice, which to me doesn't seem fair. That doesn't seem right, but that there are many laws that aren't fair or right. So, and there's a good chance that Judge Napolitano doesn't even like that rule because he's also a libertarian and probably doesn't like the idea of people being compelled to tell on themselves, for lack of a better word.
Right.
But he's just saying what the law says. But he said something that doesn't sit well with Trump, and he said it to low ratings Shep Smith.
Low rating Shep Smith,
which is what I'll be calling him from now on.
Right.
I don't even know if his ratings are low, but I just...
I'm betting they're higher than ours.
They're probably a little higher than ours.
Probably a little bit.
But
yeah,
no one's calling us low rating Spike and Matt.
That's true.
So,
that is true. My favorite thing is we posted something about it, and all of the libertarians who loved libertarians, I'm putting that in quotes if you're just listening to us, the libertarians who loved Judge Napolitano 4 years ago.
Oh yeah,
he's the second coming. He's the greatest judge out there. He needs to be on the Supreme Court. Are now calling him a traitor. Are now calling him a libtard. They're completely bashing him.
Snowflake SJW.
Yeah. Snowflake SJW Judge Napolitano. What? Why don't you like our president? He didn't do anything wrong. There was no collusion. Yeah, right, but that doesn't mean he didn't obstruct.
Which, again, doesn't make sense to me, but I would err on the side of the judge who is, again, so there are many judges that they'd say something and I'm like, nah, I don't believe you. He is really, 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 really judicial. Like, he is very nonpartisan and non-biased in his application of the law says this. I don't even have to like it, but this is what the law says, which is why I have a similar mindset of like, okay, if it says this, that's what it's supposed to say. It's a big part of why I'm an anarchist. because I don't look at the Constitution and I'm like, well, you know, the spirit of the Constitution is that we're supposed to be free. I'm reading the thing and I'm like, this says they can rob us as much as they want. They can use basically whatever pretense they want to disarm us and suspend habeas corpus and do whatever the hell they want with us. Everything that Abraham Lincoln did was completely constitutional. Everything that FDR did was completely constitutional. Starting to think this whole Constitution thing and really doing much to protect us. But it's by using that sort of like stoic application of this is what the law says. It doesn't matter what I think about freedom or whatever else. This thing says that they can do that.
Right.
So if he says that's what it is, I'm going to err on the side of agreeing with him.
Right.
And plus Chris Reynolds said it too. So
official attorney of Muddied Waters Media.
Official attorney and lap dancer.
And lap dancer of Muddied Waters Media. Speaking of attorneys.
Sure.
Best
Sure.
I got.
That works for me.
Speaking of attorneys who want to be president, mixing two metaphors, I guess.
Why not?
Kamala Harris.
Yes.
Kamala Harris. For anybody who doesn't know, Kamala Harris is a former prosecutor from the Bay Area in California.
Yep.
Not that surprising. When she came out and she talked about how she used to smoke a little weed to Dre and Snoop.
Which did not line up
Was it
with
Dre and Snoop or was it Tupac?
Tupac and Biggie.
Tupac.
No. They said some Snoop, and then she said, yeah, Tupac and Biggie or something. And it was like, yeah, you were in school before any of them were.
Yeah, before
rapping,
any of that came out.
So no, you didn't.
Right. She put a lot of people in jail for doing what she said that she had done.
A lot of people, which is why, more so than the outrage of the rapper tiff, the rapper chronology or whatever, it was like, you caged countless, well, not count, I'm sure someone can count, but a large number of people for doing precisely that. And now you're sitting here like giggling about it.
Yep.
Yeah. So
you're giggling about it.
It's freeing them while Trump is freeing some of them.
Right.
Anyway,
you're giggling about it while your parents are pissed off at you because
that
stemmed from a conversation about your Jamaican heritage, and your dad was pissed off that you played into Jamaican stereotypes.
By the way, if no one knew what West Indian parents are like, they don't care if you're running for president.
No,
they're
don't.
going to publicly shame. In fact, especially if you're running for office, they're going to publicly shame you for saying something that they disagree with.
Right.
That was the most West Indian parent thing that any of us who don't have West Indian parents and are not adjacent to West Indian parents, like myself, who have West Indian in-laws, will ever experience. I experience it occasionally as someone who has West Indian in-laws. That was a very you're running for president, you say something, gets your dad mad, so he writes a scholarly article about how wrong you are and how disappointed in you he is and why he's disappointed in you.
Which was just brilliant to watch. Now,
it was amazing, yes.
Everybody on the left ignores this. Ignores everything we just talked about. Ignores the fact that she put countless people away in cages for smoking a plant or possessing a plant. Maybe not even smoking, just possessing it. She did that. Then she admits to have doing what she put people in prison for. And they ignore that. They ignore that she played into the stereotype of Jamaica.
As a bunch of weed heads.
Let that go. But no, Kamala Harris admitted while campaigning that she owns a handgun. And Peter Funt, from USA Today, states that owning a handgun for personal safety is a position held by the NRA and not a progressive Democrat.
Yes.
She had to justify it, of course. And her justification was, I was a career prosecutor. Understandable. You just put a bunch of people in prison for something that many of us don't believe they should be in prison for. Some of them are going to be outraged at this news.
As they should.
They should. Peter Funt says what she should have said. Because Peter Funt, I'm certain, I didn't look much into him. I'm certain that he's got a law degree. And he's had many public appearances places. And he knows the right way for somebody like Kamala Harris.
Presidential
candidates to talk.
Right.
Dealing with dangerous criminals while serving as DA in San Francisco, I felt compelled to have a handgun. After leaving that job, I disposed of the weapon. That is what she should have said, but she couldn't because she did not dispose of the weapon and she still had it. Now, Peter Funt must think that, let's say, one of the people that was pissed off that she put them in jail for smoking a plant, or, you know, one of the wives of the sexual partners that she had in order to get to the top, found out about it. That's fine. Anybody. Anybody that may have been pissed off at her.
For any particular reason.
Right, for any particular reason. They're like, oh, well, she is no longer a prosecutor and she is no longer banging my husband. I should have no reason to be mad at her anymore. I'm not going to kill her.
And also, she's currently in a building with a sign that says no guns here. So I couldn't even if I wanted to.
Now,
because the sign says it's illegal.
Right, exactly. Now, I like most people, I think. I'm going to say, like most people, I have played out vengeance fantasies in my mind against people who have wronged me. Not the healthiest thing. I understand that. But I have definitely done it. Mine never includes shooting them, but I just picture what it would be like to destroy their lives.
To each their own.
Right. Other people are like, no, I'm going to go kill this person. Then they follow.
I'm going to go legitimately kill this person. Right.
I'm going to go legitimately kill this person. Peter Funt must never have had any sort of vengeance fantasy or been on a revenge quest of any kind. Because
Go ahead.
Because if he was ever in a situation where his girlfriend or boyfriend, I don't want to assume, where his girlfriend or boyfriend left him for somebody else or cheated on him with somebody else or whatever, and he was very upset about it, and he was very angry at the girlfriend or boyfriend and the person that they cheated on him with, if they stopped doing that, did he just go, okay, well, I'm done. I'm not angry at you anymore. No.
Oh, they were done? Oh, I'm fine with it now. Yeah, that's great. That's
exactly.
really good. So, gun control, the three groups, I like to group people. As an anarchist, I group everyone. The three main, I guess, schools of thought of people who support gun control are the politicians who realize that it's not ending gun violence, it's just centralizing power to them, making it so they're the only ones who can effectively use violence against anyone and just solidifying their power. I get why they support it, because they are sociopaths, and this is a great way to disarm the populace. I get why they do it. They're still scum. The other group are people that live in violence-ravaged areas who just associate guns with just endless violence. A lot of them are like mothers and stuff. They're not even thinking about trying to defend themselves. They just constantly see gang warfare, and they're just thinking like, I don't even, if you try to talk with them about statistics or whatever, they're like, I'm scared to go outside. I just want, and their politicians are telling them that the only way to stop it is gun control. And they're like, fine, I don't want to be scared to go outside. I also get it. I wish that I wish they'd think it through a little bit more and realize that gun control is part of what made this problem bad in the first place more often than not. But I also get that. I get that you're in this like crisis situation where you're just like, please just get these guns away from me. The third group, which sounds like Peter Funt is in, is what I call the unaffected, mostly white suburban liberal group, which are people that have the privilege of not experiencing violence or threats of violence. And so they watch TV and they go, oh God, there was a shooting. Ah, oh, these people with their guns. Oh, I hope that the police can just take their guns and keep me safe from gun violence. And the problem is, first of all, to really truly support gun control, like it or not, you have to love the police. And a lot of them pretend they don't. You have to love the police because you want the police to be the only people who can kill you. And you don't want to be able to kill anyone back. I get, and this is I'm about to make an incredibly sexist, heteronormative, cisnormative statement. I get why, generally speaking, not all, I get why many women support gun control. And again, I know some of the biggest gun fanatics I know are women, so I get it. Not all, many women, their parents, their mothers, they come from a place of nurturing and support, and they're thinking these guns, they're just killing people, and they're not fully thinking through the praxis of like, the cops still have to have guns. How are you going to take everyone's guns? If you're going to have massive escalations of gun violence, whatever. They're just thinking of guns in the abstract as like, they're dangerous and they're going to be good. And so I get that. I cannot picture being an intact male human and saying, guns, get them away from me. My reaction of hearing that there's danger is I want to be able to protect myself and others from that danger. Not, man, I hope there are a lot of cops here that can protect me from that danger. And I'm not like the most hyper masculine guy on earth, but I will never get it. I have a hard time being around males that support gun control. Especially the ones that are like, no one should ever have a gun. And I'm just like, your soy consumption is too high. There is a healthy amount of soy consumption. And you might also have some thyroid issues because your estrogen is too high. I don't have to blood test you. You have elevated phytoestrogens, and you need to do something about it with an endocrinologist and maybe introduce some animal flesh to offset the soy. You do not need this much soy.
I actually got into this discussion with somebody who's a guy, which was weird. And
it's weird.
It's just weird. But I got into this discussion with him, and he was like, I'm for gun control. And I was like, you can't do that. Like, and he's like, no, I think we should get rid of all guns. And I said, so initially I was like, okay, but who's going to turn in their guns?
Right.
Like I started him late, and he goes, well, yeah, but eventually the system will like pull them back in, and like the guns will all get filtered out. And I'm like, right. So then the only people left with the guns are going to be the military and the police. And he goes, well, I think we should just stop manufacturing bullets altogether.
Who enforces this? They don't think it through.
Right. Like, you're talking about at a global scale?
Nobody's at a global scale. And who enforces it, and how are you going to stop them? Hey, you stop making those bullets, or what? Or I'm going to stop you. Well, how? You don't have any guns? Like, it takes... And so this is in the same way that vegans think that they're saving animals by only eating stuff that, requires massive amounts of killing of wildlife to produce and protect from predator, from birds and stuff that might want to eat it. They don't think through exactly how many animals have to die for them to get their asparagus and broccoli. which, by the way, I love asparagus and broccoli.
Right.
But they don't think it through. You're not thinking it through of the massive amounts of gun violence and jailing of minorities that so when I have a standard question which I've never had answered yet. And I tell people, I say the history of gun control in the US, the very first gun control laws passed in the US were passed to prevent freed slaves from owning weapons. Basically, the whites didn't want the blacks to have guns because they were scared that they would say, "Hey, remember when you used to own me? Pow." And also they want, and more so, they also wanted to continue to oppress black people, and it's a lot easier to do that when they don't have guns. So the very first laws in this country were to keep black people from being able to defend themselves against racist white people. And ever since then, every single, not just gun control law, but laws in general, are disproportionately enforced against primarily black people, but people of color in general, minority populations in general, but especially black people. And there's a myriad of reasons for this. Institutional racism, the fact that black people tend to live in more urban areas, which have heavier levels of enforcement, whatever. The bottom line is that if you pass a law, the vast majority of people that are going to have it enforced against them and are going to be punished for it are black people. So my question, and Donald Trump is currently president. So my question to gun control advocates is, how many more black people does Donald Trump have to put in a cage before you feel sufficiently safe? And I ask for a number or even a number range, 50 to 100,000, 100 to 200,000, 500,000 to a million. Give me a ballpark of how many black people need to be imprisoned for you to feel like your little Timmy and Rebecca can, go to the soccer field safely. And I've yet to get an answer on that. I get a bunch of obfuscations about the NRA and crap like that, but no one will tell me how many black people they want to be forcibly detained and caged and disenfranchised for the rest of their lives until they feel safe.
And then you always end up getting the question, the David Hogg question of, how many AR-15s did Jesus have?
How many stocks did he have?
Yeah, none. I mean,
how many clear backpacks full of rocks did he have, David? How many fake stories about being in a school shooting did he have?
All of those, less than you.
All of those, less than even one. Yeah. Who would? Jesus. My favorite arguments are ones that use Jesus from secular progressives who hate Christianity and everything it stands for. Hate religion in general, but really, really hate Christianity, who will say well, Jesus wouldn't have done that. And I'll say, oh, well, then you're obviously a really hardcore Christian, right? Because you seem to be guided by what Jesus would do. Obviously.
Obviously.
My other favorite one is, well, Jesus didn't drug test people before he gave them food, free stuff. He was making it the story. For those who don't believe in the Gospels, the story, and for those who do believe, whether you believe it or not, the story is that Jesus made food from nothing and gave it to people. Jesus didn't give people socialized healthcare. He healed them magically. So if you know of a politician that can heal people magically, awesome. But at no point did Jesus say, oh my gosh, you're sick? Everyone now, give me your money or I'll kill you.
Give me your money or you're going to jail.
You're going to jail. I'm going to take your stuff. And if you fight back against me, I'll kill every single last one of you.
And trust me, I know my future. It's not pretty. You don't want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Being killed, I can tell you already, not fun.
Going to jail in the Roman Empire, not a good time.
Not. I give you 1 star on Yelp, Roman crucifixion service. 1 Yelp star.
One Yelp star. If I knew how to say Yelp in Latin, that would make me so happy.
Help you. Help you.
I mean, it's Aramaic, but I mean, Latin, closest I could get.
I have to think Yelp is one of those onomatopoeias where it kind of always sounds like Yelp. So maybe it's like Yelp.
You're actually probably correct.
Yelp.
Yelp.
LPA.
All right. So, real quick, we don't. That's it. Real quick. As we said at the beginning of the show, this is our 100th episode,
Yeah.
which is crazy. I mean, when this show started, I didn't think we were going to get past like 4, maybe 6. I honestly didn't. I did not, and I'm not blaming the other co-hosts for that. Like, I'm legitimately blaming me because I didn't think I was going to want to do this.
Right.
And it turned out like this is the most fun I have every week. Is this show is the hour and a half to 2 hours that I do this show is the most fun I have every week. This is the 100th episode of Muddied Waters of Freedom. This is my 99th episode on this show. I have missed one. You have.
Oh yeah, the infamous
Alaska
Spike.
No, not that one. That one didn't count as a show, did it? Did we episode number that one?
Oh, you're right. We did. Yeah, we did number that.
No.
Oh yeah, you had your Alaska episode.
When I was in Alaska, over the last summer, the former co-host did one episode while I was gone, and that one counted as an episode. So this is my 99th episode. Math was really hard for me today, and I believe this is your 29th.
Yeah, I think 29.
Because you started on episode 72 as the co-host. And I think you were on one before that.
Yeah, I guest hosted like...
Back in December of the... November the year before.
Yeah, November the year before, yeah.
Right.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I sure did.
Yeah. Because you and I had started talking because that was when our recovering addicts became friends.
Yeah.
And then I was like, hey, man, you want to come on the show? And then I thanked you, and I got a little teary-eyed for, because I was going through a hard time. And I don't know if we were streaming at the time, but now
you did cry. So it may or may not have been witnessed, but there was crying.
But there were tears. So I think this is your 29th. And if anybody wants to go back and listen to episode 1, I don't recommend. A spider just literally fell on my nose and is like laying a web. All like
100th episode spider.
Right, the 100th episode spider.
That turns into Spider-Man on the 100th episode.
On the 100th episode. I felt something on the nose. I was like, oh God, what is that? And then I felt like the web everywhere. And I'm like, what? How?
Why are flies getting attracted to me?
But if anybody wants to, I don't recommend it, but if anybody goes back and listens to like episode 1, it's awful. It's terrible. It's really bad. It is so bad. But over the years, because of help from friends, I still feel it like everywhere. It's really... I'm not like even afraid of spiders, but I just feel like the web everywhere.
The show's got so much better. I'm really like it now.
Yeah, it's like I'm looking like a meth head.
You're freaking hard.
I know.
So...
But thank
now I now feel crawling.
Right.
And I'm nowhere near you.
But thanks to friends who knew how to do things and friends who friends who understood how to make a show decent. We got the right equipment. We started learning how to do a show properly.
Right.
The co-host had this really odd voice change around episode 72. And like we've gone through a lot over the first 2.5 years of this podcast. And for everybody who has been with me, with Muddied Waters since episode 1, thank you for sticking with it all of this way to get to where we are today. And to everybody that we have picked up along the way, thank you to you for finding us and for sharing us and for reviewing us and for just becoming fans of the show. Not even of me and Spike. You may hate us. I don't care. But like just enjoying the show.
You don't have to like us.
No.
Just respect the show.
To all of you, thank you, because I honestly, Spike mentioned earlier that I have an autographed picture of Rush Limbaugh on the wall, and I do. I've had that picture since I was 16, I think, maybe younger, 15, 16, somewhere in there. I wanted to do political talk radio. It's all I wanted to do. And I would listen to Rush Limbaugh every day because he was doing it, and he was doing it really, really well. Because he, and I wanted to figure out how to do that. Because of the fans that watch, I mean, we don't make any money doing this. We're doing this for you guys, really, and the fact that we have fun doing it. But
that might be soon. That might be changing soon. But
yes, that might be changing soon. But because of you guys, you actually give us a reason to do this, and literally each and every one of you is allowing me to make my dream come true that I have wanted for 25 years. And so thank you for that. I definitely appreciate it. It is humbling to be able to do this show every week. Like Spike and I have never actually been in the same room, but he's my best friend in the world. No, he's my second best friend in the world. I can't say that. Dave Carter always is going to win that battle. But he's my best friend, definitely, that I talk to this regularly. And and honestly, if it wasn't for the people who were watching us, at least, sporadically, this wouldn't make any sense for us to do, because we could do this without doing all of this extra crap that we do. So thank you to
talk.
Right, yeah, we just call each other. But thank you to all of you, because really it is you're allowing me to do my dream, and that's so fucking cool.
Yeah, it's an absolute blast. I actually didn't know I wanted to do this, but ever since I started my show, another one that don't watch the first episode of my show, because I was rough as hell. Even my second, my transition from my first to second was great. Now I think I do a pretty decent job, but it's so much fun doing this. One of my favorite things to do every week, and really have a blast with it. And love the interaction with people on it. So yeah, please keep watching, and thank you so much. And share it with people you think would also like to watch two guys rant about politics. But no, we absolutely love it. And thank you for joining us for our 100th episode. This is awesome. We will see you on the 1000th episode, which will happen soon.
We'll see you on the 101st episode as well.
101st at the very least,
right?
And then maybe the 1000th. So this is Tuesday. So this is the final week, hopefully, of me not having an episode of my show, of My Fellow Americans, hoping. I had a back injury, and then I kept having to be out of town. So starting next week, I'm probably just going to do like an Ask Me Anything episode, just because I haven't done a show in a month, and I'm a little rusty. And also, in case my back starts hurting, I can just stop the show.
Just cancel. I'm done.
Just be like, all right, well, my back hurts, got to go. But so that will be next Wednesday. But so nothing tomorrow on Muddied Waters, but Thursday on the Writer's Block. Who do you have on?
Thursday on the Writer's Block. I'm really excited about this guest that I have on Thursday. He is like a real life Ron Swanson. Yeah, it's insane. Like massively libertarian. He builds everything himself. He finished he bought a house, but then he refinished the entire thing. He left a city because it was too strict on what he was allowed to do and what he wasn't allowed to do. And he moved out to the middle of the country, and he's like, man, out here I can collect my rainwater. I can go shooting in my backyard. Like, I don't need to pull permits for anything. And he does all the woodwork himself. He has made me multiple wooden pens that I have around this office and this house. He is one of the reasons I became a libertarian. Brett Corriere, he's like my big brother. I love that guy so much. But he has agreed to come on the show on Thursday. I'm so excited to have him on.
Nice.
So,
is that going to be an in-person or over?
He lives in Tennessee.
Oh, okay. Well, that's awesome. That sounds really good. By the way, and I your last episode was I told you this is one of my favorite that you've had so far.
It's also
really good.
It's also one of YouTube's favorites.
I believe it. The quality of your program has really been going up, and I've said that to you publicly or privately, but now I'm saying it publicly. Writer's Block, a increasingly whelming show. An increasingly good show. So that's on Thursday. Will be Brett Corriere. You said his name is. So that's very good. I'm looking forward to that because I like real life. I'm sort of a Ron Swanson in that I like breakfast meats and dark women. But it starts to, I've never actually woodworked, so it starts to fall off after that. And I never worked for the city, so that's also a thing.
He's never worked for the city either. He's always been a private businessman, which is
actually more Ron Swanson.
Right, Ron Swanson never would have worked, or Ron Swanson in real life never would have worked for the city.
No, and definitely not. Ended up working for the federal government, which was anyway. Okay, so that's Thursday, and then on Friday. We have Mr. America, the Bearded Truth, where Jason Lyon, the straight bearded wonder, will be having his Sabbath, his Shabbat episode on Friday. Then have a great weekend, guys, and then next Monday, join us again for the week beginning episode of because he does Mondays and Fridays of Mr. America, the Bearded Truth. Yep. Then tune in again next Tuesday, a week from today. The Muddied Waters of Freedom, the very special 101st episode.
Which is my 100th episode on the show.
Which is Matt's 100th episode and my 30th. So there's some more round numbers there. And so tune in for that. And in the meantime, have a great week. Matt, if there's a way, is there a way for people to find us on this internet thing?
There is. I was getting so prepared to do like the music and everything that I kind of forgot that I had to do that part.
That we're on the internet, right?
Yeah, that we're on the internet. I just thought this was you and me talking.
I was doing the lead out, so it was my fault.
Yes. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Muddied Waters of Freedom. You can find us on Instagram at Muddied Waters of Freedom. You can find us on the Twitter. You can tweet us on the Twitter at muddied_waters. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/muddiedwatersmedia. And you can find this and every episode at muddiedwatersoffreedom.com. Please pick your favorite podcasting app, whether it's Apple, whether it's Spotify, whether it's SoundCloud, whether it's Stitcher, whether it's Spreaker. I'm running out. Google Play, any of them. Please rate us and leave a review because that's actually, I found out how more people find out about us.
Yeah, we're pretty popular on the podcasting apps because it turns out a lot of people think we have a face for radio and would rather not look at us while we talk, which I'm fine with. Yeah. You don't have to look at me.
I don't care. You're missing out.
You're missing out, but I don't care.
Right.
You do you. You're only gonna hear Chris giving Matt a lap dance. You're not gonna actually see it. So that's you know what you wanna lose out on the enjoyment, then whatever. But anyway, guys, thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next week. And where we're going,
we don't need roads.
Okay, I want to tell you guys a story about a band called Nirvana. You probably know this story already, but whatever. They were a good band, man, a really good band. They had this awesome third album, lost them a lot of fans, though. Had this great track on it called Tourette's that went, but the band doesn't really work over these chords. Anyway, I've totally lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, Kurt Cobain's dead, and I'm reliably informed that Courtney did it. She did it, Courtney did it, oh, Courtney killed Cobain. She did it, Courtney did it, Courtney did it, Courtney killed Cobain. I don't know why we blame it on her. It seems easy to say Courtney Love is capable of murder, but I haven't much of anything to back that up. I might be going out on a limb here, but I think society doesn't seem to like women at the best of times, but we really get mad when they fuck our rock stars, you know? Kurt Cobain belongs to us, we cried, so naturally when he died, everybody said Courtney did it. She did it, Courtney did it, oh, Courtney killed Cobain. She did it, Courtney did it, Courtney did it, Courtney killed Cobain. She raised that kid on her own. Yeah, she's got problems. Don't we all have problems that would be exacerbated by living life in the public eye? Need I remind you, this poor human being lost her husband when she was barely 29, and we repay her how? By hassling her on Twitter fucking 700 times a day. Her phone goes ping, 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 ping. 99% of the time it's saying the same thing. It's saying, "Good evening, Courtney Love. It is I, MK Ultra Truther 99, and you will no doubt be nervous to learn I've been carrying out an independent investigation into the mysterious circumstances surrounding your husband's suicide." Kurt Cobain's suicide note is 4 paragraphs of a man preparing to leave you and retire from the music industry, followed by 4 lines at the end in different pen and different handwriting, in which he talks about suicide. Pretty weird, Courtney. Pretty weird, not incriminating on its own. However, following your husband's death, in your possession was found a piece of paper in which you've been practicing his handwriting. What have you been practicing? You've been practicing the last fucking 4 lines of his suicide note. How do you explain that? I'll tell you how I explain that. You did it, you did it, just admit it. You killed Kurt Cobain. You did it, just admit it, just admit it. You killed Kurt Cobain, Kurt Cobain, Kurt Cobain. Killed Kurt Cobain, Kurt Cobain, Kurt Cobain. Na 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 na.